Hey guys, it's Dave, and this week, because I don't really have any applications or programs to talk about as far as the Mac is concerned, and plus, just to switch it up since I've been doing so many screencasts the past couple weeks, I figured I'd go ahead and go back to what I started with, which is just using iMovie and my iSight camera to sort of talk a little bit. Um, this week, I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to review my first full game that isn't Mac or iPod Touch related. So I'm going to talk about Heavenly Sword this week, which I just played this past week and finished it up. I rented it through GameFly, and it's a PS3 exclusive. It was a game that I was pretty interested in for a while, just because I had played. Well, I'd heard a lot about it first of all, and then when I got my PS3 last Christmas, I one of the first things I did was download a few demos, and Heavenly Sword was one of those demos. And I played the demo after being pretty excited for the full game, and was pretty let down. The demo was really short, and I just really didn't like it very much. Um, but I still, much like Resistance, the same thing happened with Resistance. I didn't really like the demo for that much either. I still wanted to try it out, and a rental was perfect. Plus, I had been playing a lot of first-person shooters the past couple weeks. Bad Company, Crisis, and now I'm playing Stalker, Clear Sky, and all three of those are first-person shooters. So, kind of wanted to switch it up a little bit, and Heavenly Sword seemed like the perfect game to do that. If you don't know what type of game Heavenly Sword is, it's basically like an action beat 'em up sort of brawler game. The closest thing I could think to relate it to would be the Ninja Gaiden games, where you're basically sort of a female ninja, I guess. You have a sweet weapon and you just tear through enemies and do combos and all these different attacks. You have a couple different stances, and that varies the combat, but it's pretty much a combat focused game with some variation there. But the reason I wanted to rent it instead of purchasing it is because I had heard it was really short, and that did in fact end up being the case. So it's a really good game to rent. So basically, you play Noriko. She's the main character of the game, and she has the power of this sword, the Heavenly Sword, believe it or not, uh, given to her, and she is trying to thwart this evil king guy. His name is Bohan, and he's trying to come and steal the sword from her and her people, and they've been keeping it for years and years and years. And basically, it's just the story of Noriko trying to hold on to the sword, keep it from this guy Bohan, and you battle between the two factions, Bohan's empire or city or whatever, and Noriko's little village of sort of medieval, traditional kind of Japanese influenced, almost like samurai village. So where to start? I guess like I said, it's a really heavily combat focused game, all with just the one weapon, the sword, which kind of there's three different stances in the game. There's a power stance, which does a lot of damage but is slow. There's the normal stance, which is kind of in between, and then there's the range stance, which is really fast, and obviously it lets you attack people from some distance, but it doesn't do much damage. And between those three different stances, the sword kind of varies in its form. Um, the when you're in the range stance, the sword breaks up and you can swing it around, and so it becomes almost like a closest thing I can relate to it is like nunchucks or something. But so there's that. There's also a heavy element on the six-axis controller. So if you don't really like the six-axis, actually, if you don't like the six-axis, there's a good thing. You can switch the six-axis parts over to use the analog stick. But I stuck it out. I don't really mind the six-axis too much. Um, but basically, what the six-axis is, if you don't know, it's the motion controller for the PS3. So if I was holding the PS3, I'd tilt it around, and you do use that to guide projectiles mostly throughout the game. So there's a couple parts where you play what I'm thinking is Noriko's little sister, and she's good with a bow, and so you usually get up somewhere and then you shoot an arrow and then you guide it with the six axis or the analog stick if you don't like the six axis. I started off really hating those parts. The very first part with the bow and arrow was really frustrating to me because it was a dark level. It was hard to maneuver the arrows as you shot them. But once you get used to it, it's a pretty cool effect. And like I said, I didn't mind using the 6-axis instead of the analog. I've heard some people complain and say that it's easier with the analog stick, but I think there's something appealing about the challenge of using the 6-axis to guide the projectiles. That same element is also applied to defense missions where you're using a cannon and you can sort of, I don't know, move around the cannonballs after you shoot them so that you can get them on target. And I'm trying to think. There's also every puzzle element in the game is basically these hats that you have to throw at gongs, and all of those are done with the 6-axis as well. You can do it without the 6-axis. It's just a lot more difficult, I think. And plus, or you can just use the analog stick. And basically, what all that stuff is, it's called aftertouch, where after you shoot or throw something, you hold down the button and then it goes into aftertouch mode, and that's where you guide it wherever you want it to go, either with the analog stick or the 6-axis controller. Like I said, I started off hating it, but it kind of grew on me by the end. There's one level, I think it's the third level of the game, where you play as Kai pretty much the entire level, and so you do a lot of the 6-axis aftertouch stuff. And during that level, I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. It was a nice way to break up the monotony of all the combat. But the graphics are really good, especially for an earlier PS3 game. All you hear about these days is how difficult the PS3 is to develop for, but I noticed that it was really well done, especially the cutscenes. Also, the voice acting was really good. I think the guy who played Gollum in the Lord of the Rings series plays King Bohan, and so obviously his voice acting was really good. I thought all of the voice acting was good across the board. Cinematics were definitely something cool to look at. Like I said, the game is really short. There's only 6 levels that are broken up into these little micro levels that you can probably beat in a couple of minutes each. And each segment, like level, each of the 6 levels ends with a boss fight of some sort. And those are pretty good. They keep it interesting anyways. But there's no multiplayer, which is unfortunate. I'm not sure exactly how they would be able to integrate multiplayer. But for the gameplay, what it is, there's a lot of epic battles. There's a lot of variation with both the aftertouch stuff with Kai, some of the defense levels, and just some of the general feel of the bigger battles and the boss fights. So there's a lot there to get through. It's just that there's not enough of it, I guess. There's a lot of variation, but they just don't. They didn't expand it more than they should have, I think. If you get Heavenly Sword, you can probably beat it in an afternoon. It's about 6 hours long. Each of the 6 chapters is about an hour long, so not a very long game, like I said, but it's a good rental. I would have to say at least you should give it a shot. If you have a PS3, there's not exactly a dearth of games you have to play anyway, so if you've been thinking about it, definitely run it. Maybe you'll end up buying it if you really like it. There's different difficulty modes that unlock after you beat it once, so there's some replay value there. There's also a lot of artwork and stuff that you can unlock, so there's some incentive to play it multiple times, I guess, on different difficulties. But just because it's so short, I can't really recommend it as a full $60 purchase. I think since it's been out now, it's probably about $40. But so that's pretty much Heavenly Sword. That's my first game review, video game review. It's kind of hard to, I guess, talk about a game rather than write about it, which I'm used to doing at my blog. That's, as always, www.davechemic.com/blog, where you can see some of my older reviews. I think the last one I did was Too Human, and that's up there. But let me know if you like this. I can continue to, I have plenty of games that I'm playing. I can continue to review them. If not, then I'll try to go back to the application stuff. Basically, it just depends on what you guys like to see. I don't really mind doing either one. It's just that this week I didn't really have any applications to talk about. So that's it for today. It's Friday, so I hope you have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week. Take it easy.